happened to them, the hacking of their daughter's phone, and their terrible treatment at the hands of the News of the World. I'm sure the whole House will want to pay tribute to their courage and bravery. Does the Prime Minister now agree with me that it is an insult to the family that Rebecca Brooks, who was the editor of the News of the World at the time, is still in her post at News International?
I've made very clear she was right to resign. That resignation should have been accepted. There needs to be root and branch change at this entire organisation. And I think it is now become increasingly clear that while everybody, to start with, wanted in some way to separate what was happening at News International and what is happening with B-Sky-B, that is simply not possible. What has happened at this company is disgraceful. It's got to be addressed at every level, and they should stop thinking about mergers when they've got to sort out the mess they've created.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Prime Minister for that answer, and he's right to take the position that Rebecca Brooks should go. Now, Mr. Speaker, when such a serious cloud hangs over News Corporation, and with the abuses and the systematic pattern of deceit we have seen, does he agree with me, and he clearly does, that it would be quite wrong for them to expand their stake, in the British media? And does he further agree that if the House of Commons speaks with one voice today, and I hope he will still come to the debate, that Rupert Murdoch should drop his bid for B-Sky-B, should recognise the world has changed, and he should listen to this House of Commons?
I agree with what the right honourable gentleman said, and I think it's good that the House of Commons is going to speak with one voice. As he knows, the government does have a job to do to act at all times within the law, and my right honourable friend, the Culture Secretary, has to obey every aspect of the law, laws that were on the whole put in place by the last government. And yes, as the honourable member says from a sedentary position, we should look at amending the laws. We should make sure the fit and proper test is right. We should make sure the Competition and Enterprise Acts are right. But I think it is perfectly acceptable, one at the same time, to obey the law as a government, but to send a message from this House of Commons that this business has got to stop the business of mergers and get on with the business of cleaning its stables.
Mr. Speaker, I look forward to debating these issues with the Leader of the House, who will be speaking for the government later in the debate. Mr. Speaker, I know he is making a statement shortly about the inquiry, but can he confirm something that we agreed last night, that we need to make sure that we get to the bottom, not just of what happened at our newspapers, but also about the relationships between politicians and the press? Does he agree with me that if we expect editors and members of the press to give evidence under oath, so should current and past politicians?
I agree with that. First of all, on this issue of the debate, I mean, we're debating now, and that's right. We're going to have a statement in the House of Commons. And, Mr. Speaker, I will stand here and answer questions from as many members of Parliament want to ask them. And I think we should focus on the substance. As the Leader of the Opposition said, we had an excellent meeting last night. We discussed the nature of the inquiry that needs to take place. We discussed the terms of reference. I sent those terms of reference to his office this morning. We've had some amendments. We are happy to accept those amendments. They will still be draft terms of reference, and I want to hear what the Downer family and others have to say so we can move ahead in a way that takes the whole country with us as we deal with this problem. And I also think if we are going to say to the police, you must be more transparent and cut out corruption, if we're going to say to the media, you must be more transparent and cut out this malpractice, then yes, the relationship between politicians and the media must change, and we must be more transparent too about meetings, particularly with executives, editors, proprietors and the rest of it. And I'll be setting out some proposals for precisely that in a minute or two.
I want to thank the Prime Minister for those answers, and they're answers the whole country will have wanted to hear. Can I also ask him to clear up one specific issue? It has now been confirmed that his Chief of Staff and his Director of Strategy were given specific information before the general election by the Guardian newspaper. The information showed that while he was editing the News of the World, Andy Coulson had hired Jonathan Rees, a man jailed for 7 years for a criminal conspiracy, and who made payments to police on behalf of the News of the World. Can the Prime Minister tell us what happened to that significant information that was given to his Chief of Staff?
I'd like to answer this, if I may, Mr. Speaker, in full, and I do need to give a very full answer. First of all these questions relate to the fact that I hired a tabloid editor. I did so on the basis of assurances that he gave me that he did not know about the phone hacking and he was not involved in criminality. He gave those self-same assurances to the police, to a select committee of this House, and under oath to a court of law. If it turns out he lied, it won't just be that he shouldn't have been in government, it will be that he should be prosecuted. But I do believe, Mr. Speaker, we must stick to the principle that you are innocent until proven guilty. Now, let me deal directly about the information given to my office by figures from the Guardian newspaper in February last year. First of all, this information was not passed on to me, but let me be clear. This was not some secret stash of information. Almost all of it was published in The Guardian in February 2010, at the same time my office was approached. It contained no allegations directly linking Andy Coulson to illegal behaviour. It didn't shed any further light on the issue of phone hacking, so it wasn't drawn to my attention by my office. And what's more, Mr. Speaker, let me just make this point. I met the editor of The Guardian the very next month, and he didn't raise it with me once. I met him a year later. He didn't raise it then either. Indeed, I would ask, if this information is so significant, why have I not been asked one question about it at a press conference or in this House? The reason why, Mr. Speaker, it didn't add anything to the assurances that I was given. But let me say once more, if I was lied to, if the police were lied to, if the Select Committee was lied to, it would be a matter of deep regret and a matter for a criminal prosecution.
Order! Anybody might think that orchestrated noise is taking place. Order! The House will come to order, and these exchanges will continue in an orderly way. Mr. Ed Miliband.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has just made a very important admission. He has admitted that his Chief of Staff was given information before the general election that Andy Coulson had hired a man jailed for 7 years for a criminal conspiracy who made payments to the police on behalf of the news of the world. This evidence casts serious doubt on Mr. Coulson's assurances that the phone hacking over which he resigned was an isolated example of illegal activity. The Prime Minister says his Chief of Staff did not pass on this very serious information. Can he now tell us what information he proposes to take against his Chief of Staff?
I have given, I think, the fullest possible answer I could to the right honourable gentleman. And let me just say this. He can stand there and ask questions about Andy Coulson. I can stand here and ask questions about Tom Baldwin. He can ask questions about my private office. I can ask questions about Damien McBride. But do you know what, Mr. Speaker? I think the public and the victims of this appalling scandal want us to rise above this and deal with the problems that this country faces.
Ed Miliband.
Mr. Speaker, he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. I say this to the Prime Minister. He was warned by the Deputy Prime Minister about hiring Andy Coulson. He was warned by Lord Ashdown about hiring Andy Coulson. He has now admitted in the House of Commons today that his Chief of Staff was given complete evidence which contradicted Andy Coulson's previous accounts. The Prime Minister must now publish the fullest account of all the information that was provided and what he did and why those warnings went unheeded. And he should do most of all, he should apologise for the catastrophic error of judgment he made in hiring Andy Coulson.